Citizens rely on authorities to do their jobs ethically. It can be hard to hold authorities accountable for wrongful actions. Philadelphia news reporters and Pulitzer Prize winners Barbara Laker and Wendy Ruderman found corruption in a narcotic police squad. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure. Thanks for having us. Yeah.
So there's a lot of detail that goes into this award-winning story, you know, and you got first wind of it when an undercover informant came to your office, you know, terrified for his life. This jump-started the story for you?
Absolutely, yeah. His name was Mr. Martinez. He came in and he had this story that seemed really sort of almost wild and improbable, kind of like The Wire, if you've ever seen that show. But there was something to his story. He was saying that he had been working with this undercover narcotics officer for about 7 years, and that this narcotics officer was renting a house to him. So, and we didn't realize this, but what his job was to make drug buys. So he would knock on a door, ask the people for drugs in the house, and that would be the basis for the police to go in and get a search warrant for the house. And the police department actually paid him, which is normal. You get paid, it's sort of like a paid job. You get paid per house, and you get paid if there's guns in the house extra. And so all the money he was making was going back to this narcotics officer for rent money. So.
Okay, yeah. Barbara, how hard was it to pitch this kind of a story?
It was difficult because Benny Martinez was a convicted drug dealer. So we're taking the word of a convicted drug dealer, and the cop involved who he first talked about to us, Jeff Chuddock, was a decorated cop. So it wasn't easy at first, but our editor let us kind of go with it and check out his story, because he was saying that the cop was fabricating evidence in some cases and lying on search warrants. So we had to check that out by tracking down all these drug dealers in really bad neighborhoods to see what they had to say. But we wanted to do it, and we thought it was worth checking out, and our editor gave us time to start with that process.
Wendy, could you kind of give a description of, you know, the overall basis of the story?
Well, the story was, it unfolded in 3 sections. The first section was about fabricating evidence and lying on search warrants to get into people's homes, and the financial arrangement between the informant and the police officer. And then the second segment that we rolled into was actually, we had uncovered that this particular narcotic squad was literally looting and robbing mom and pop stores, little bodega stores on the corners, where, you know, sort of like a corner convenience store in cities. And they would go in and they would dismantle the surveillance cameras, and then they would take money, make sandwiches, slurp sodas, really just terrorize these shop owners. And this had been going on for a while, and the shop owners had kept quiet about it until Barbara and I knocked on their door and began to talk to them about it. And we had convinced a whole bunch of shop owners to tell their story.
Okay, and you keep mentioning shop owners. We actually have a video of when the police raided a certain shop, and they actually took down the surveillance cameras. And we're going to show our viewers that now.
There's one in the back corner right there. They can be viewed at home. Okay, we'll disconnect.
So was this the big break in this story for you?
It really was. The video in particular. Oh, go ahead, Barbara. I don't want to cut you.
No, it was a big break because we had first written about merchants who said they had been raided by these cops, and they told us what had happened, that the cops came in and did what you just saw, where they cut the wires and then took money from the stores. But after that story ran, one merchant, Jose Duran, called Wendy and said, he spoke very little English, but what he could say was that he had a tape, and he had a backup tape of when his store was raided. And this is what you see. He had an audio and visual of the cops coming in there, and you can hear and see what they did. And that tape that you just ran was because they dismantled every single camera in the store. And so that was one of them, that they pulled down the wire, and he took a kitchen knife from the deli, the store deli, to cut the camera wire. So no one could see. There was no proof of what they did after that, or so they thought.
Okay, I'm sure in reporting a big story like this, there's a lot of struggles. Wendy, what were some of those?
Well, we got a lot of pushback from the police union. The police union in Philadelphia is very strong, and we happen to be running the story at a time, an unfortunate time, where there was a lot of violence in Philadelphia, and police officers, an inordinate amount, were being killed in the line of duty. So we got a lot of threats. The police put my home address on a chat site. There was a chat site run by police officers where they had put my address on there, and they would say they wished that we would get killed, and we would get hang-up calls, and there was some definitely dicey moments, yeah. And I think the other challenge of the story was really just knocking on doors. We knocked on hundreds of doors in neighborhoods, and we wore out our sneakers talking to people in the street and in some scary places.
Yeah, and these are dangerous neighborhoods where, I mean, we heard gunfire. We heard, one time we were out there and we heard gunfire far away, and then we heard this one guy, he was arguing with someone across the street, and he said he was going to go get his piece. So I turned to Wendy, I said, we got to get out of here because we didn't know. We thought we could get caught in the crossfire. The people in the neighborhoods were great to us because we weren't threatening and we weren't intimidating, and we just wanted to hear what they had to say. And in fact, they looked out for us. But our fear was that somehow we'd get caught in the crossfire, and we didn't want to get killed before we'd finished the story.
Yeah, right. That'd be a bad thing.
How much of the story consumed your life?
We worked a ton. I would say we worked 12-hour days routinely, and we would leave at midnight a lot of times. It would be dark outside. And I always joke, I have little kids, and my kids would say things to me like, oh, it was so nice having you visit when I would leave for work, or they would say, like, they'd ask me if I was the babysitter, if I was home watching them. And I think they were just twisting the knife. I hope they weren't serious.
Kind of balancing your family and work life, what kept you moving forward? Barbara?
We were obsessed with this story, and we really believed in it, and we really believed that the people who had started talking to us really had no voice in the city. They were people who felt that they had no power. Like these bodega owners, they hadn't reported this to anyone until we found them, and we found 16 for the first story who would go on the record for us, and they were scared. They thought it was just the part of doing business in the city. This is what you had to pay.
All right. Thank you, Barbara and Wendy, for coming on the show today. Such an incredible story.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.